Mark, thank you so much for joining us. I know you kind of had a couple highlights in there. And what are kind of closing remarks you want to get to your independent filmmaker?
I think that right now is a brilliant time to be a creator and a filmmaker because for me personally as a producer, even as recently as 5 years ago, but certainly 10 years ago, you get a piece of material, and there's a limited number of avenues where you can take it, and at some point you just have to shut down. And by definition, a producer is somebody who takes a no and turns it into a yes on another day with a different set of conditions, and you want to never say die. And the best producers never say die, and that's why you see some movies that have taken 10 years or 20 years to get made, and you hear a lot of those stories. I think that now there's all these outlets for ideas, and if you can't sell it in a traditional way at first, that now if you can figure out a clever way to exploit it for the kinds of budgets we're talking about, there's a whole new way to break into the industry for independent filmmakers and for independent creators that there's never been before, because you can actually go make a 2-minute proof of concept. 5-10 years ago, if you'd have told somebody you wanted to go make a 2-minute episode or a 10-minute episode, they would have thought it was a waste of money, right? And now it's something that has a price tag on it, and it's lower, but it is worth something, and that has never existed before. So I think everybody should be very excited.
How is it important to make your proof of concept like to the T? How much money would you say to put into a proof of concept?
It depends on the concept, because I look at High Maintenance, for example, which somebody just turned me on to a few weeks ago, so I'm talking about it all the time. But that show is about a pot dealer who rides around on his bike in New York, and so they could shoot all the stuff outdoors for the most part, a couple of apartments that were probably like the people's apartments, right? And it makes perfect sense being made at the low budget it was made for, because that's kind of the story idea. Then there's H+, which Warner Brothers Digital makes, which is a much different budget. It's almost got per minute a regular series budget, right? And that's based on the idea of being really high concept and really expensive, and it needs to be made for that. So I don't know if there's a perfect amount. I think that the beauty of it is that what happens is you will find a place that wants to make your idea for a certain amount of money. And either you will, as a creator, figure out how to make a version of it for that amount of money, or you won't make it at all, right? And I think that a lot of the most interesting innovations and inventions creatively throughout time, but certainly right now, have been made by people being forced to work within a budget and having to come up with clever ways to do that, And so I think you see filmmakers like Gareth Edwards breaking through with Monsters, right? Which he did on his Mac for like $500, $1,000. That's the level of talent people should be ascribing to for the kind of money that we're talking about.
Originality, and especially just the techniques that people shoot things these days.
Yeah, and I think creativity there's such, Hitchcock invented playing tension with things that weren't on the screen, right? So it's old-fashioned good storytelling, combined with the way that new technology allows you to do things faster, cheaper, quicker.
As a producer, what kind of content do you look for? Do you look for originality, or do you look for something that with a twist or marketability?
For me personally, I like high concept stuff that has, without getting on a soapbox, some sort of thematic value. So like District 9. Which was an apartheid metaphor or whatnot. For me, that's great science fiction with a metaphor and a theme where you can talk about something like apartheid and racism and whatnot, right? So for me, that's what I'm always looking for. It's not just something that's high concept or not just something that's a procedural, but that has something to say about the world.
Perfect. All right, so yeah, trends in Hollywood. You can see like the Black Lives Movement. Yeah. Oscars are so wide, yeah. And as an independent filmmaker, should we go after that kind of trend or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you talk to anybody that the Oscars so white or anything else isn't new news. I think that it's been a rallying cry for a long time, and I think it transcends racial boundaries. I think there's just a generational boundary. I think the younger half of the Academy feels like the older half of the Academy isn't necessarily reflecting the modern world, and they may not be wrong. I think that now that the Amazons, the Netflix, and all these other places, the technology is caught up with the generation, with millennials, and that audiences are dying to see themselves on screen. So I think that the hole that's being left by the movie community, probably there's a huge vacuum to be filled with great content for those audiences.
Do you think the studios are going to try and make room for more of these diversity shows?
I think they will. I think that they will as a reaction. I think that it'll then come down to money, as it always does after a year or two, and I think so it's about how you monetize it at that point. And I think that, again, some ideas don't need to be made for $3 million or $4 million an hour to make their point, and I think that as creators, in order to make the most money but also have the most control over what you're doing, you want to stay away from the big money as long as possible.
How important is it to learn the business before actually approaching a pitch?
Before making something, pitching is like impossible these days. Even A-list writers can't go pitch and sell a show for the most part. You have to write something up or whatnot. I think that industry exposure is important so that you understand how it works, but you don't want to expose yourself so much that it sort of depresses you into not making original content or makes you think in a formulaic way.
Thank you so much for joining us. Are you on social media or anything where we can follow you
I'm
on?
a total Luddite, so no, I'm absolutely not, unfortunately. I will start a Twitter and Instagram following, hopefully in the next year or two.
Okay, anything we can follow you on your tags or your website?
Literally nothing. You can root for Sense8 and turn your audiences on to Sense8, which has its own website and hashtag and Instagram and all that other stuff. Season 2 is coming up next year. But otherwise, no. You can Wikipedia me.
Wikipedia. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
For young creators, I think we're in a new world with digital. I think there's a lot of opportunities. You don't have the same kind of like studio hurdles traditionally, and there's the panel that we were just on around. There's a lot of young buyers like Go90, like Vessel, like Fullscreen. They're really giving a platform for new young voices, and I think there's a lot of opportunities to really start to rethink content, to be able to step outside the box and not think about traditional studio system, both from just a distribution perspective, like not having to go through traditional windows like theatrical to transactional and to pay TV or like the Netflix window, and just start thinking about, can I be premiering my content on digital platforms? Can I be doing creative first, not be conformed to traditional 22, 44 minute like TV windows, but really start to rethink about what is the best kind of mode for storytelling and what's the best platform and the best home for my content. Fullscreen, our traditional business, is we're a large MCN. We have 75,000 channels, doing approximately 6 billion monthly views. It's a big creator-driven business where we're providing tools and helping them to elevate their business. I'm working on an initiative where we're launching a subscription streaming business, very much like a Netflix or Hulu or an Amazon, but really focused on the young millennial or post-millennial audience with content that's specifically curated for a young audience, as well as not just traditional TV movies, but short-form content, both license acquired and originals that we're developing and producing to be premiering on our platform. It goes many different ways. Obviously, we do a lot of different agents, managers. We get submissions in directly. And not uncommon, we also find a lot of folks just online. We're always on YouTube and other web platforms, finding new great web series from new young voices and reaching out to them directly, looking for either to license that content or to work with them to develop other projects that they might have.
What's more appealing to you?
I think it all comes together. I mean, certainly there's places where we're working with young creators that have already been able to build an audience and know how to speak to their audience and understands their own voice and what their audience is drawn to. But in other cases, we're focused on just great story and great storytelling, and it's really about engaging an audience. And sometimes that's just starting from a place of a great script or a great story, and other times it's really starting from creators that already really know their audience and know how to speak to their audience.